At this time, I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. At the very outset, let me thank all of the witnesses, the member panel, and the witnesses who have traveled to be with us here today. Thank you very much for giving the time, and this is what I believe to be a very valuable and important hearing. Today's hearing will be the first in a series of hearings dealing with the critical issue of the radicalization of Muslim Americans. I am well aware that the announcement of these hearings has generated considerable controversy and opposition. Some of this opposition, such as my colleague and friends Mr. Ellis and Mr. Pasquale, has been measured and thoughtful. Other opposition, both from special interest groups and the media, has ranged from disbelief to paroxysms of rage and hysteria. Let me make it clear today that I remain convinced that these hearings must go forward, and they will. To back down would be a craven surrender to political correctness and an abdication of what I believe to be the main responsibility of this committee, to protect America from a terrorist attack. Despite what passes for conventional wisdom in certain circles, there is nothing radical or un-American in holding these hearings. Indeed, congressional investigation of Muslim American radicalization is the logical response to the repeated and urgent warnings which the Obama administration has been making in recent months. Just this past Sunday, for instance, Dennis McDonough, the Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, made a major speech on radicalization, stating that, quote, Al-Qaeda and its adherents have increasingly turned to another troubling tactic, attempting to recruit and radicalize people to terrorism here in the United States. For a long time, many in the U.S. thought that we were immune from this threat. That was false hope and false comfort. This threat is real, and it is serious. Mr. McDonough went on to say, Al-Qaeda does this for the express purpose of trying to convince Muslim Americans to reject their country and attack their fellow Americans. End of quote. I should also add my own personal conversations with Mr. McDonough prior to the speech. He told me to go forward with the hearing and that the administration welcomed congressional involvement. Similarly, in late December, Attorney General Holder said the growing number of young Americans being radicalized and willing to take up arms against our country, quote, keeps him awake at night, unquote. And 2 weeks before that, the Attorney General defended the FBI's sting operation against Mohammed Osman Mohammed, who attempted a terror attack during a Christmas tree lighting celebration in Portland, Oregon, saying, the Attorney General said, he made no apologies for this operation. Quote, said the Attorney General, those who characterize the FBI's activities as entrapment simply do not have their facts straight, end of quote. 1 month ago, sitting right there, Secretary Napolitano testified before this committee and said the threat level today is as high as it has been since September 11th because of increased radicalization in our country. Now I would ask the audience and the committee, just notice this chart over here. Just in the last 2 years alone, these are terror plots which have been blocked by our government. Virtually every part of the United States is affected by this. It affects the entire nation. Those of us in the Northeast perhaps have more threats, but the fact is, as we found out, no one is immune from these type threats and these type attacks. This committee cannot live in denial, which is what some of us would do when they suggest that this hearing dilute its focus by investigating threats unrelated to Al-Qaeda. The Department of Homeland Security and this committee were formed in response to the Al-Qaeda attacks of September 11th. There is no equivalency of threat between Al-Qaeda and neo-Nazis, environmental extremists, or other isolated madmen. Only Al-Qaeda and its Islamist affiliates in this country are part of an international threat to our nation. Indeed, by the Justice Department's own record, not one terror-related case in the last 2 years involved neo-Nazis, environmental extremists, militias, or anti-war groups. I have repeatedly said that the overwhelming majority of Muslim Americans are outstanding Americans and make enormous contributions to our country. But there are realities we can't ignore. For instance, the Pew poll, which said that 15% of Muslim American men between the age of 18 and 29 could support suicide bombings. This is the segment of the community al-Qaeda is attempting to recruit. To combat this threat, moderate leadership must emerge from the Muslim community. As the majority and minority staff of the Senate Homeland Security Committee concluded in its report, which ironically enough was entitled Violent Islamist Extremism and the Homegrown Terrorist Threat, this report concluded Muslim community leaders and religious leaders must play a more visible role in discrediting and providing alternatives to violent Islamist ideology. End of quote. This means that responsible Muslim American leaders must reject discredited groups such as CAIR, the Committee on Islamic American Relations. CAIR was named as an unindicted co-conspirator in the terrorist financing case involving the Holy Land Foundation. In the lead-up to this hearing, I found it shocking and sad that the mainstream media accepted CAIR's accusations as if it were a legitimate organization. Thankfully, FBI Director Mueller has ordered the FBI to cease all dealings and contact with CAIR, possibly and probably because of this type of placard and poster, which was posted by San Francisco CAIR. I would hope that all law enforcement officials would follow the lead of the FBI Director. Al-Qaeda realizes that the measures we have put in place over the past 9.5 years make it very difficult to launch a large-scale attack against our homeland from outside the country, which is why they have altered their strategy and are using people living legally in the United States. These include New York City subway bomber Najibullah Azazi, Fort Hood terrorist U.S. Army Major Nidal Hassan, Colleen LaRose, known as Jihad Jane, Times Square bomber Faisal Shahzad, Little Rock recruiting center shooter Carlos Bledsoe, his father is a witness here today, and dozens of individuals in Minneapolis associated with the Somali terrorist organization Al-Shabaab, and the uncle of one of those young men who was radicalized in Minneapolis, sent to Somalia, and eventually killed, is also with us here today. And then also the Mumbai plotter, David Headley. Let me thank all of the witnesses for giving up their valuable time to be with us here today. I want to express special thanks, however, to Melvin Bledsoe and Abdulrazak Bihi. These brave men have endured suffering no father or uncle should ever have to go through. Their courage and spirit will put a human face on the horror which Islamist radicalization has inflicted and will continue to inflict on good families, especially those in the Muslim community, unless we put aside political correctness and define who our enemy truly is. As we approach the 10-year anniversary of the September 11th attacks, we cannot allow the memory of that tragic day to fade away. We must remember that in the days following the attack, we were all united in our dedication to fight back against al-Qaeda and its ideology. Today, we must be fully aware that homegrown radicalization is part of al-Qaeda's strategy to continue attacking the United States. Al-Qaeda is actively targeting the American Muslim community for recruitment. Today's hearing will address this dangerous trend, and now it's my privilege to recognize the distinguished ranking member of the committee, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson.